All right, we're back with part 6 of our 3-part series. And we're going to be taking a closer look at the Mali Dogon dance and Sirius B and Julian Day 2458888. What's the big whoop-de-doo about the Dogon? Wow. We're going to be talking about where the Dogon tribe got their information from, their very accurate information about Sirius A and the dance of Sirius B orbiting Sirius A. These costumes are all part of the Dogon dance of Sirius B and the ritual that they go through celebrating the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. Now, the Mali Dogon dance imitates the rotation of Sirius B orbiting Sirius A, and the orbit is every 50 years and completely unseen from the Earth by the Dogon. So that's the big question. They cannot see it, so how do they know about Sirius A, Sirius B in the first place? And they also know about Sirius C that has not yet been discovered, but with our telescopes today and technology, astronomers are seriously looking at the knowledge that the Dogon have had for millennia and wondered how in the hell did they know about this being so primitive. Now, the Dogon have their belief painted on the cliff walls. They also paint a pyramid on their hands. And the ancient knowledge of these tribes all around the planet, like the Mayan, for example, they were visited by angels. Today they're called aliens because of the infiltration by the lovely people who have to change everything to make it spooky and illogical, etc. But bottom line is that these visitors have always been of the angelic realm. These are some of the sacred sites of the Dogon in Mali. Very tall people. And yes, it's interesting in the middle there, House of Words. Very interesting. Now, the cult of Binu, so this is information out there taken from the internet. It's a totemic practice and it has complex associations with the Dogon sacred places used for ancestor worship, spirit communication, and agricultural sacrifices. Marcel Griol and his colleagues, he was a Frenchman, came to believe that all the major Dogon sacred sites were related to episodes in the Dogon myth of the creation of the world, in particular to a deity named Nomo. Nomo was the first living being created by Amma, the sky god and creator of the universe. And I just remind you that within the Hebrew concordance, Amma with an H on the end of it is, of course, the mother measure, Abba and Amma. So just want you to take the information from this with the broad brushstroke that we're giving you, but this is information that has been consistent throughout the ancient world, including the Essene account of creation, etc. That's pretty well been squashed by the infiltration of the lovely people and how they manipulate history. So the sky god and creator of the universe, and he soon multiplied to become 4 pairs of twins. One of the twins rebelled against the order established by Amma, thereby destabilizing the universe. In order to purify the cosmos and restore its order, Amma sacrificed another of the Nomo, whose body was cut up and scattered throughout the universe. And more of the microcosm, it is related to the Osiris, Nimrod. Nimrod is the one that was supposed to have been cut up and put into the river. And anyway, the bottom line is, let's just plow through this, because we're looking at the numbers and the stars themselves, not perhaps the fantasy. The distribution of the parts of Nomo's body is seen as the source for the proliferation of Binu shrines throughout the Dogon region. In addition to containing parts of Nomo's body, Binu shrines house spirits of mythic ancestors who lived in the legendary era before the appearance of death among mankind. Now, Binu's spirits often make themselves known to their descendants in the form of an animal that interceded on behalf of the clan during its founding or migration, thus becoming the clan's totem. The priests of each Binu maintain the sanctuaries, whose facades are often painted with graphic signs and mystic symbols. Sacrifices of blood and millet. Porridge, millet being the primary crop of the Dogon, are made at the Binu shrines at planting time, and whenever the intercession of the immortal ancestor is desired. Through such rituals, the Dogon believe that the benevolent force of the ancestor is traversing time, and whenever the intercession of the immortal ancestor is desired, through such rituals, the Dogon believe that the benevolent force of the ancestor is transmitted to them. In the late 1940s, Dogon priests greatly surprised the French anthropologists Griol and Dieterlen by telling them of secret Dogon myths about the star Sirius, which is 8.6 light years from the Earth. The priests said that Sirius had a companion star that was invisible to the human eye. They also stated that the star moved in a 50-year elliptical orbit around Sirius, that it was small and incredibly heavy, and that it rotated on its axis. All these things happen to be true. The actual orbital figure is 50.04 plus or minus 0.09 years. But what makes this so remarkable is that the companion star of Sirius, called Sirius B, was first photographed in 1970. While people began to suspect its existence around 1844, it was not seen through a telescope until 1862. The Dogon beliefs, on the other hand, were supposedly thousands of years old. The Dogon name for Sirius B is Po Tolu, consists of the word for star, Tolo, and Po, the name of the smallest seed known to them. By this name, they describe the star's smallness. It is, they say, the smallest thing there is. They also claim that it is the heaviest star and white. The tribe claims that Po is composed of a mysterious, super dense metal called Sagala, which they declare is heavier than all the iron on Earth. Not until 1926 did Western science discover that this tiny star is a white dwarf, a category of star characterized by very great density. Many artifacts were found describing the star system, including a statue named by Dietelen that is at least 400 years old. The Dogon also describe a third star in the Sirius system called Ya. Larger and lighter than Sirius B, this star revolves around Sirius as well. Around the star Ya orbits a planet from which the mythic Nomos originally came. To date, however, astronomers have not identified Ya. They do refer to it, though, as Sirius C. Will our celestial observation devices one day be powerful enough to find this legendary planet, thereby adding still more mystery to the extraordinary, seemingly impossible astronomical knowledge of the Dogon? In addition to their knowledge of the Sirius group, the Dogon mythology includes Saturn's rings and Jupiter's 4 major moons. So going back to the 3rd millennia BC, how did these people know about this? Angels. That's right. They have 4 calendars for the moon, the sun, Sirius and Venus, and have long known that planets orbit the sun. The Dogon say their astronomical knowledge was given to them by the Nomos, amphibious beings sent to Earth from Sirius for the benefit of mankind. The word Nomos comes from a Dogon word meaning to make one drink, and the Nomos are also called masters of the water, the monitors, and the teachers. The Dogon myths tell the legend of the Nomos, who arrived in a vessel along with fire and thunder. After they arrived here, they put out a reservoir of water onto the earth, then dove into the water. There are references in the oral traditions, drawings and tablets of the Dogons to human-looking beings who have feet but who are portrayed as having a large fish skin running down their bodies. The Nomos were more fish-like than human and had to live in water. They were saviors and spiritual guardians. Quoting, the Nomo divided his body among men to feed them. That is why it is also said that as the universe had drunk of his body, the Nomo also made men drink. He gave all his life principles to human beings. Now, who does this remind you of? The living water, Jesus, pouring himself out so that others may live, gave all his life principles to human beings. Now, this is where it gets really important. The Nomo was crucified, hello, and resurrected, hello, and in the future will again visit the earth, this time in human form. Hello, what do we have here? We have Jesus, crucified, resurrected, and again already on the earth in human form. Now, similar creatures have been noted in other ancient civilizations, Babylonia's Oannes, Akkadia's Ea, Sumer's Enki, and Egypt's goddess Isis. The photographs show Binu shrines near Sangha and a ruby Ibi, and it says in brackets the ostrich eggs atop the roof spire symbolize fertility and purity. Readers wishing so just encapsulating, there are references in the oral traditions, drawings and tablets of the Dogons to human-looking beings who have feet, but who were portrayed as having a large fish skin running down their bodies. The Nomos were more fish-like than human and had to live in water. They were saviors and spiritual guardians. The Nomo divided his body among men to feed them. That is why it is also said that as the universe had drunk of his body, the Nomo also made men drink. He gave all his life principles to human beings. And the big whoop-de-doo, the Nomo was crucified. Hello? What's crucifixion coming to the scene? 3 millennia BC. And resurrected. And we are reminded of Yah's crucifixion, April the 3rd, 33 AD, when he was 3 days old, his life as Jesus, and then multiplied by the value for pi, gives us his rebirth location into St. Margaret's Hospital, measuring 3877.66 miles from the South Pole. So resurrected, and in the future will again visit the earth, this time in human form. So we've got all of these stories in similar creatures and similar myths, and it's all similar. Here are some of the paintings on their walls. Always a serpent. One of their temples. Now, the message of the coming back of the one crucified, who was crucified and resurrected, is what they believe, without any Christian influence. This is the point of it all. Now, back to Yah's work and back to the future. With the coming of Julian Day 2458888, the star, now remembering our latest uploads, we talked about the Aramaic, first and last letter of the Aramaic alphabet being Aleph, a reference to the ship of Argo Navis, the constellation, but the last letter being Tau, T-A-U, the first and the last. It just happens that at 12 noon on Julian Day 2458888, the star overhead is Tau. The Aramaic last letter in the alphabet. Hello! So Tau is the equivalent to the Greek alphabet, Omega, which is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. And it just happens to be in the Dog constellation. Sirius is known as the Dog star, isn't it? And just hold on to your hats, because as we get through this, we're going to see what the concordance has to say about things. So we have the very moment of Julian Day 2458888 over Tugum, Queensland, Australia, reveals Alpha Sirius, gives us Alpha and Omega being Alpha and Tau, Tau being the Omega of the Aramaic alphabet. The Dogon, being primitive natives in the middle of Africa, have been visited by angels who gave them the story of Sirius B orbiting Sirius A. What's interesting to note that as Jesus, Yah's blood grouping has been determined to be AB. In this life, his blood grouping is O, and it's all to do with the numbers. Has been visited by angels who gave them the story of Sirius B orbiting Sirius A, with no possible way that they could see this 50-year orbit or the star B, as it is far too dim for the human eye to see. Then last week we revealed Tau as the last letter of the Aramaic alphabet. And here it is, Julian day 2458888 above Tugum. And it's up there for 748 minutes. Sirius at the very top, and Tau, the omega of the Aramaic alphabet, risen for 748 minutes. So the message continues for that day. Uranus is also overhead, and it sets at 22:23. This is where I said hold on to your hats. And means a greyhound, as being slender as it's at its waist. A dog. Hello? Found in Isaiah 22:23. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place, and he will be for a glorious to his father's house. Then if we go back to Isaiah 22:22, and the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder, so he shall open and none shall shut, and he shall shut and none shall open. Open and shut what? Little horn of Daniel 7:8, quoting, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. And then we find ourselves back in Daniel 10:6. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, 784, the number for fire, and his arms and his feet like in colour to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Now that is Alpha Sirius. It's rising in minutes for the day, Julian day 2458888, above Tugum, 784, found in the verse Daniel 10:6 that I just read. Now this is the moon location, Julian day, over Tugum, Queensland, and the next slide is the sun position. So the sun on the left, so measuring to my former home on Nell Street, which is the southeast corner of the Holy City, Nell Street, Greensboro, Melbourne. The 3 sides you can see there, the triangulation, measure 38770 kilometres. Hello. This number takes us right back to the beginning, the word God found in 3877 verses 4,443 times, and is also the distance of the rebirth location to the South Pole. The rebirth location being the hospital, because the rebirth house, 105 Rothschild Avenue, and then the rebirth hospital, St. Margaret's, are only 2 miles apart, very close. So this is revealing St. Margaret's Hospital, Yah's ancestor, and then the house, of course, is the Comforter number at 3875 miles to the South Pole. Yes, St. Margaret is the patron saint of Scotland, much revered. She was, by all accounts, a very pious, kind woman who loved Jesus, and she had her own prayer book that she kept with her, and she was a woman of action. She did not eat until she knew that the people around her down in the streets had food to eat, and she was the one responsible for getting a ferry to run across the Fife backwards and forwards to take the people across, rather than having to spend hours and hours, horse and cart going around to get from place to place. So, a bit of revision. Jesus born on June 17th, 2 BC and died on the cross 3 days later, and was April the 3rd, 33 AD. So the days 3 times pi, which is 3.14159, and a very long number, as you all know. But the 3141 in the Greek concordance means witness, record, or testimony of usually pertaining to the future. So pi is the witness throughout the creation to the Lord Jesus Christ. And that number, 3877.66, is the distance from the South Pole to St. Margaret Maternity Hospital. Again, 3877 being the God verse total in the KJV 1611. And it's called the NASCO translation, or we call it the Chris Epps Compu Bible program. We refer to it as our gold standard, if you like, because that was the one that it was truly angelic that got it into Yah's hands at the time, very early 1990s, and that's how and what he started the revelation with. Now, the internet stories of the Dogon and the angels that arrived with the story of God coming to the earth as a man after being crucified and resurrected first became known and written about in 1938. So then we've got all kinds of BS. Inventing the Sumerian 12 planets. So this is down through the ages. We're talking the lovely people that always interfering, and the myths that came out of Babylon in the first instance. And Jesus coming into this world that was totally barbaric, unintelligent, and so under the yoke of the God of Moses myth and his 613 rules, regulations, protocols, statutes, and all the rest of it. The people were so oppressed. But anyway, it's you've got this amazing weaving of Yah's tapestry, which is marvelous in our sight, but sorting out the BS that has also been woven into the tapestry of history written by men. You've just got to look at things, and I know people more and more are just shaking their heads in astonishment at the BS that people have come to believe because it's what they've been taught. Okay, so we've got aliens, which were reptilian, who came to the Dogon in a 3-legged spacecraft, informing them that they had come to the Earth in ancient times to alter human DNA, in which the first attempt was unsuccessful. Then they returned again to alter the human DNA, which was also unsuccessful. And then finally, on the 3rd attempt, they had manipulated the DNA to make slaves out of the human being to mine gold. This is a total invention straight out of the mind of the lovely people. Who is it that are the goldsmiths? Hello? The brokers, the ones that have it all, but them, which they needed for their dying planet atmosphere. Straight out of, like I said, the Jews' imagination. Then last written about by the Jew Zechariah Sitchin, when he had apparently been instructed to transfer the story to the Sumerian 12 planets found in carvings in ancient Sumeria, where the Moses myth originated. So pathetic are all the stories, is the story and all the stories.
It's a bit of a way when they mention DNA.
Yes.
It's a modern thing.
Yes, yeah. The 3-legged spaceship filled with water could sustain the fish people who are covered with fish scales, according to the retranslation of the angels who gave the story of God being crucified, resurrected, and coming back to the earth as a man. But we know how stupid the lovely people are. However, no matter how stupid they are, God always wins. As we see over here, with all the knowledge of all the scholars and all the preachers, teachers, pastors, priests, popes, ministers, evangelists, rabbis, which I had to edit because I originally had rabbits. Rabbis, nuns, yeah, rabid dogs more like it, yeah, speaking of the dog star, nuns, etc., etc. It is the meek Dogon and their knowledge of the dog star Sirius A, the brightest alpha star in Sirius B, invisible to the naked eye, which orbits Sirius A every 50 years, aligning with the 50th layer of masonry of the Great Pyramid that the Dogon have tattooed into the palms of their hands. It is they who conclude the revelation of Yah, the crucified, resurrected, come again as a man, God himself. The angels gave them the information, just as they gave the Mayans the information, etc. And with the 888, Jesus in Greek gematria, number of Julian day 2458888, which is February the 8th, 2020, that 8888 points to the 25th of January 1944, when the solar eclipse occurred over the 25-degree north latitude, very close to the Great Pyramid, and it measured 8888.8 miles to the birth home, that's at 105 Rothschild Avenue, Sydney, Australia, which is the Comforter 3875 miles from the South Pole. And at Julian day 2458888, directly above Dogon, where we are recording this, the home of the Christ today, has been for the last almost 7 years. Dogon, the capstone of the pyramid of the holy city, is the star Tau, the omega star of the dog star and the last letter of the Aramaic alphabet that we covered in our previous uploads. Yah thinks that's a checkmate. Now, what have we got though? Look at this. We're measuring from the Dogon in Bamako, Mali. We're measuring at that on the day of the eclipse that occurred, January the 25th, 1944, 8888.8 miles to the rebirth home. So measuring from the Dogon to the altar to the Lord, they have tattooed on their hands, is a distance of 1454 nautical miles, and it means resurrection. Hello. Found only once in Matthew 27:53, quoting, came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the holy city. That's Australia. Do you see? Prophecy of the future, fulfilled then in the no time and space of the spiritual realm, but it's a prophecy of today, Australia, the holy city, and appeared unto many. How? YouTube. The coming in the clouds of the internet, cyberspace, cloud data storage, if you want to look at it that way. Cyberspace, the information freeway, and is the like lightning flashing from east to west under the clouds of heaven. Comes the voice and the image, the audio and video of God talking to you. Hello, he says. Anybody out there? You all know that one. So let's move on and just look at some really pathetic, oh my goodness gracious me. So, now Dogon, Dagon, the priest of Dogon wears the same mitre hat that the Pope wears, rather fishy, yes, all very fishy. And they've got some pathetic Catholic excuse for it all. Now, I want to tell you that when we were communicating with Pope Benedict XVI, once he retired, our first day of communication began March the 11th, 2013. He sent through, or it must have been Father Giuseppe, sent through this photograph, a very private photograph taken up close, of Benedict wearing a mitre, this fishy mitre, but it had the Star of David all over it. Well, I sent back an email saying, what are you doing? You know, where did this come, why? And because I'd already given a massive serving, the lovely people in Israel and all the rest of it. And so Benedict hurriedly sent back another photograph where he's wearing his mitre without the Star of David, but with the fleur-de-lis all over it. Anyway, it was explained that that hat came from the Jewish Italian hat maker who had presented it as a gift to Benedict, and he, in his ignorance, naivety, accepted it graciously as a gift and wore it. So not after we slammed him about it. Took it off, quick smart. Oops, what about this one? That's better. However, the fishy really is fishy. But Benedict was naive, a humble man, pure in heart. This is why he did what he did. And, you know,
Stupid.
yeah, I mean, Yas is stupid, but, you know, the whole world compared to Yah is, so. The religious mitre hat from Babylon. Mystery Babylon. The priests of ancient Dagon fishy worship. So this is how things are perverted down through history. Men interfering and with their interpretations of everything, and take something that's totally angelic and pervert it to a very base understanding of, and it becomes just ridiculous.
Spacecraft's got to show up full of water.
yeah.
Oh,
Wait for that one. Again, we like this sign, the complete and utter bullshit. What is the origin of the Pope's hat? Dagon, the fish god of the Philistines and Babylonians, wore a fish hat that is still seen today within the Roman Catholic Church's popes and bishops. And yeah, so it is calling out the BS of what the church explanation fails to describe is the actual fish eye. Oh yes, because the church says that the shape of the mitre represents the tongues of fire that rested on the heads of the disciples gathered in the upper room on the day of Pentecost when God sent the Holy Spirit to the church.
yeah, right.
And Yah just says, yeah, right. You know what he has to say about the Holy Spirit and tongues of fire and all the rest of it? Well, yeah, right. So this writer, though, calls it out and calls it what it is, complete and utter bullshit, because they fail to describe as the actual fish eye on the centre of the mitre. This writer says perhaps this is an ember of charcoal from the tongues of fire. Probably not. It's a fish eye. So the book Nineveh and Babylon by Austin Henry Layard stated in their veneration and worship of Dagon, the high priest of paganism would actually put on a garment that had been created from a huge fish. The head of the fish formed a mitre above that of the old man, while its scaly fan-like tail fell as a cloak behind, leaving the human limbs and feet exposed.
Smells a bit fishy, doesn't it?
Yes, says Yah. So this is the world that Yah came into as Jesus. Can you imagine his frustration, his astonishment and frustration? Pretty much, I think he thinks it's worse today.
Yeah, it's gone mad.
Runaway cattle train of insanity and
Well, that's his
Dung.
interpretation of Sumerian. They got the fish god.
yes. Now, yeah, so who is the Dagon? Well, this is the Dogon. And in the Dagon dates back to around 3 millennium BC. Now, that's interesting. 3 millennium BC is was in the 3rd millennium BC, the laying down of the altar to the Lord, the foundation stone. So we're going to take a look there for a bit of a refresher on that, because it all ties into the knowledge that was given to the Dogon by the angels, all playing out now. Something very fishy in Western religion, and certainly is. Oh my God. Okay, it goes on about the most prominent form of worship in Babylon was dedicated to Dagon, etc., etc. And then, moreover, the vestments of paganism, the fish mitre and robes of the priests of Dagon are worn by the Catholic bishops, cardinals and popes. It goes on about Enki, Sumerian and Babylonian mythology, and then Greek mythology, Ea, known as Oannes. By any name, this fish god can be traced back to the genetic manipulation of man. Now, wait on, guys, you know how we feel about this. We've called him out before. Manipulation of man by the Anunnaki, as evidenced by the lovely people's very own Zecharia Sitchin's work. So we are to base all modern understanding of the ancient world on the lovely people's very own Zecharia Sitchin. And then in 3rd century, so around 300 BC, Babylonian priest once wrote, and at first they led a somewhat wretched existence and lived without rule after the manner of beasts. But in the 1st year after the flood appeared an animal endowed with human reason, named Oannes, who rose from out of the Erythraean Sea at the point where it borders Babylonia. He had the whole body of a fish, but above his fish's head he had another head which was that of a man, and human feet emerged from beneath his fish's tail. He had a human voice, and an image of him is preserved unto this day. He passed the day in the midst of men without taking food. He taught them the use of letters, sciences, and all kinds, and arts of all kinds. He taught them to construct cities, to found temples, to compile laws, and explain to them the principles of geometrical knowledge. He made them distinguish the seeds of the earth and showed them how to collect the fruits. In short, he instructed them in everything which could tend to soften human manners and humanize their laws. From that time, nothing material has been added by way of improvement to his instructions, and when the sun set, this being Oannes retired into the sea again, for he was amphibious. Right.
He actually invented the aqualung.
The aqualung. All right, and then again, culminating with the, what have we got here? The Vatican cult of Dagon. The chief priests wore mitres shaped like the head of fish in honour of Dagon, the fish god, the lord of life. Another form, see these are all forms of other forms and forms before them of the Tammuz mystery as developed among Israel's old enemies, the Philistines. When the chief priest was established in Rome, he took the title Pontifex Maximus, which was imprinted on his mitre. When Julius Caesar, who like all young Roman of good family was an initiate, had become the head of state, he was elected Pontifex Maximus, and this title was held henceforth by all of the Roman emperors down to Constantine the Great, who was at one and the same time head of the church and high priest of the heathen. The title was afterward conferred upon the bishops of Rome and is today borne by the Pope, who is thus declared to be not the successor of the fisherman apostle Peter, but the direct successor of the high priest of the Babylonian mysteries and the servant of the fish god Dagon, for whom he wears, like his idolatrous predecessor, the fisherman's ring. Now, I have to say to you all that that may be the case throughout history ever since, because I believe it was about the 11th century that they started wearing the fish hat as Pope and all the rest of it, whatever. Benedict repented. Whatever he did as the Pope, and he tried to do good, coming up against brick walls, surrounded by the homosexual cult around him and every evil under the sun, and being the kind of man that he was, he found it very difficult to change anything. And upon recognizing Yah as the image of the Shroud of Turin and repenting, he apologized. And you can read that in the apostolic letter he wrote announcing the Christ to the world. You can read it in Christum Credit that he apologized to Mr. Marshall for not being able to change things. He felt so incapacitated, like one tiny little man against this Goliath of the church, and making the changes that became so obvious to him that he should have made once Yah wrote Vatican III for him, that he apologized for not having made the changes. And anyway, he humbled himself. That's the point. The pure in heart shall see God. In the Shroud of Turin is the how. It's Yah's photograph. Really pretty simple. It's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Right, so yes, we love that sign. Moving right along though. So Yah wants the world to digest this further. The word Lord is found in my computer program, which is the correct translation, in 6,666 verses. The reason for this is the Julian day number 66666.6666, which is March the 27th in the year 2888 BC. So what have we got? We are in the 3rd millennium BC, which is the knowledge of the Dogon had about Sirius A and Sirius B. It's really quite a serious matter, isn't it? And Sirius C. So going back to that date in time, looking at the sky above this home in Tugum, Australia, Jupiter, hello, was overtaken by Venus, similar to the conjunction of my birth as Jesus, June the 17th, 2 BC. That's what the Star of Bethlehem was all about. It was Venus and Jupiter conjuncting. The two combined were a duration, so this is over Tugum, of 1503 minutes. This number is found in Isaiah 11:1, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. This is the famous verse, January the 11th, 1944, written Australia style, the day first, the 11th of January 1944, where in Hebrew gematria every 7th letter is total and it equals 888, which is the Greek gematria for Jesus. So that's 1503. Which word is it exactly, babe?
1503, the word means...
No, what is it? What is the word?
Oh, how do you say it? Giza.
Right, and it means...
G-E-Z-A.
Right.
From a news root meaning to cut down trees. Trunk or stump.
Right.
Tree. As spelled as for planted.
Right.
Then stock.
Okay, so from Isaiah 11:1, which word is it in the
And
verse?
there shall come forth
Yeah.
a rod out of the stem.
So that's the 1503, is it?
1503.
Okay.
And a branch shall grow out of his roots. So they're talking about this tree
Yes.
being the genetic line of King David.
Right. Okay. And I just clicked on the page here, and voila, we've got Venus and Jupiter. Now, looking at the numbers, remember this is over Tugum, back in time, 27th of March in the year 2888 BC, which was the laying of the foundation stone of the altar to the Lord. We've got Venus at 555, which is the amount of times that the word Christ is found in 522 verses in our CompuBible program. And again, 522 is Amma, the mother measure. We're just talking about Amma, the name of the creator, referred to as a he in the Dogon understanding. 751 minutes for Jupiter and 751 minutes for Venus and 752 for Jupiter, totaling 1503, found in Isaiah 11:1. And there shall come forth a rod, a stem, 1503, of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And this is Yah's home planet program You can see the date, March 27th, in the year 2888 BC, which is Julian Day 6666666.66667. And you can see it's been set for our above our home here in Dogon at that latitude and longitude. And this is what it looks like from the Earth from the Moon, its location. Now, because the astronomy programs, well, because they're written, although it's 2888 BC, it's actually written as minus 2887. That's to do with the accounting of not counting year zero between 1 BC and 1 AD in Gregorian calendars, etc. This is the sun location, the dayside view from the sun, just above the northwest of Australia. And the measuring of the sun and the moon location back to the rebirth location. Yeah, so as we see, the moon is over Australia and the sun west and slightly north. We measure from St. Margaret's maternity, where I was reborn, to the sun and moon positions and back to St. Margaret's maternity. And guess what? It's 8,888 nautical miles, which brings us back to Julian Day 2458888 on February the 8th, 2020. As Jesus, he said, unless time is shortened, there will be no flesh left to save. So we've got the end date determined by the 100 years of the pyramid, end date December the 18th, 2022, minus the displacement factor of 2861 in years, 2.861 years, and we arrive at February the 8th, 2020. Julian Day 2458888. Okay, so this time we're measuring just 2 legs, not the 3 legs of the previous slide. So from St. Margaret's maternity to the sun, then the moon, is 5547 in the Greek concordance. Nautical miles, 5547 is the word Christ. So Yah says at the moment of resurrection and conception, which is 1910 years, conception 1910 years after the resurrection, resurrection April the 5th, 33 AD, Jerusalem time, conception in the very early hours of the morning, April the 6th, 1943, Australian time, Australia ahead of Jerusalem. The speed of the Earth, however, for both instances of time was slowing to 66,666.6666 miles per hour. And so there you have, setting the home planet to Julian date 66666, the speed of the Earth. It just happens to be the 27th of March, 2888 BC, written as minus 2887 in astronomy programs. 2 famous eclipses, one announcing Yah's rebirth, occurred January the 25th, 1944, aligning with the 50th layer of masonry on the altar to the Lord, which is the floor to the King's Chamber, measuring to the rebirth home at 105 Rothschild Avenue, 8888.8 miles. And then the last in the series of the 202 solar eclipses, aligning with the 202 layers of the altar to the Lord, occurred on November the 14th, 2012 at 8 p.m. It measured 942 miles to the rebirth location. Of course, 942 verses. The name Jesus is found 973 times within the 942 verses. And the distance to this home at Dogon from the rebirth home at Rothschild Avenue is 973 kilometers. So we've got Jesus in Greek gematria all over the place. And here it is, the 557. Christos, anointed, that is the Messiah, an epithet of Jesus Christ. And we have a great big hello. Below New Zealand there, 888 miles between latitudes, where it sits snugly. And the image of the Shroud of Turin, that's the Shroud of Turin on the left, and the Shroud of Turin overlaid Yar's photograph that I took while we were in Hurghada by the Red Sea throughout November of 2013. Yeah, in Egypt, Hurghada, Egypt, on the edge of the Red Sea. And it was 8 months after Pope Benedict XVI had announced to the world that indeed the Christ is back. He did that throughout March of 2013 and was cut off for his bravery, cut off from communicating with us or anybody else in the world who knows about the Christ, and all kinds of things went down, including murder, kidnapping and murder. Francis is a murderer. He's responsible for all of it. And so the continued mayhem on the earth, including the slaughter of Christians throughout the African countries and the Middle East, and the rise of USA as it is under this administration, being influenced heavily by the lovely people behind the scene, then it all falls on Francis' head. With that, we say,
hasta la vista, baby.
and later, Gators.